this story the other day in the the Toronto Star. Headline is, David Suzuki, Peter Mansbridge, and other prominent ex-broadcasters are calling out CBC. Here's why. And their subheadline is, here's what David Suzuki says needs to be done to address an escalating crisis that affects us all. Now, just stop for a moment. Is David Suzuki a prominent ex-broadcaster? Well, yes, I think he is, but he's much more than that too, isn't he? He runs a lobby group that bears his name, the David Suzuki Foundation, that lobbies for extremist, environmentalist, and socialist policies. They proudly take donations from foreign donors to attack Canadian jobs. Isn't that odd? I've never seen Suzuki attack an OPEC country or China or Russia, by far the biggest polluters in the world, by far the biggest sources of oil in the world. They just hate Canadian oil. So yeah, he is a prominent ex-broadcaster, it's true, but he's also a foreign-funded political activist. Weirdly, when he retired as a broadcaster on the CBC, they gave his show, The Nature of Things, to his utterly undistinguished daughter, Sarika Cullis Suzuki. They just sort of gifted it to her. Does anyone think for a second that if she didn't have his last name, that they wouldn't have given her his show as if it was some personal heirloom, personal property to grant to his children as he sees fit? I mean, the CBC is rife with that kind of nepotism, but this is just sad. Anyways, let's read a bit from the Toronto Star story. 5 eminent CBC alumni are urging the public broadcaster to deepen its coverage of the climate crisis in the face of an escalating civilizational threat. Hang on, more coverage? More than they already do? As journalists, members of the CBC family, and as Canadians concerned about our future, we ask that the CBC treat the climate breakdown as an existential crisis and civilizational threat that it is, reads a copy of the letter obtained by the Star. Oh, they must have done a lot of digging for this. Drafted by former broadcasters David Suzuki, Peter Mansbridge, Adrienne Clarkson, she's the former Governor General too, Paul Kennedy, and Lyndon McIntyre, the call to action was delivered to Brodie Fenlon, head of CBC News, on May 1st, 2023. Attached were a raft of recommendations, including a daily climate emergency report for the broadcaster's flagship news and current affairs shows. It's weird that they sent the letter a year and a half ago, and this is considered big news today. Again, that's not really journalism, though. That's lobbying. Even the Toronto Star, by running this, is lobbying, aren't they? And the 5 ex-journalists here are just lobbying the government broadcaster. Why should their opinion count any more than the rest of us? And by the way, Suzuki actually is a lobbyist. Did he register to lobby the CBC? I'm just kidding. He never has in all his years at the CBC. He really milked that. He set up an outside organization to wring out donors, the David Suzuki Foundation, including foreign donors, and he tailored his CBC shows to serve the interests of his lobby group. Highly unethical, and this is really no different. Who exactly is paying for this? Because someone is. David Suzuki does not work for free. By the way, the timing here is impeccable. Did I show you this the other day by pollster David Coletto of Abacus? Those who say they are very concerned are concerned by age. He's talking about climate change. 18 to 29-year-olds, 44%. 30 to 44 years olds, 31%. 45 to 59-year-olds, 38%. 60 plus years old, 50%. He's showing how much people concerned about global warming by age. And he says millennials are the least concerned about climate change. Boomers are the most. I think that's obvious. Here's what I wrote in reply. Worrying about global warming is a luxury good. It's what you do when the rest of your life is going great. So you need something fashionable to worry about. When you can't afford a house, a car, or groceries, you have real concerns, and a carbon tax makes them all worse. By the way, here's the chart that Coletto published on this subject. Just fascinating. People say they care about global warming if you ask them, because they know that's the official approved polite thing to say, fashionable thing to say, but they don't really mean it, of course. I mean, what does it even mean to say you care about global warming? If you ask someone, Would you pay a carbon tax to change the weather? How many would agree? How many would think that's even a thing? How many would think that's possible to change the weather with a tax other than Trudeau himself? I mean, would you use a paper straw instead of a plastic straw to save the world? Yeah, is that really all it takes to save the world? People aren't that stupid. The question itself is a junk question. And conservatives, by the way, would be well advised to just ignore that question. I know they're always asked it, especially by neutral moderators in debates. Just ignore it. I mean, I know the media are obsessed by it, and as you can see, they want the CBC to go even harder on it, but don't. I mean, no one means it. No one means it if they're not being paid to believe that. All right, back to the story in the Star. While the authors say they received a respectful response at the time, their request to meet was declined. Good for the CBC. Now, 2 scorching summers of extreme weather events later, the CBC's climate coverage remains inadequate, they say. Things are getting more and more urgent, Suzuki, longtime host of The Nature of Things, said in an interview with The Star. The ex-broadcaster's full letter has been made public and is available on this website. Wow, that's amazing. Good investigative journalism, Star. In a statement to The Star, a spokesman for CBC noted the broadcaster recently, quote, redoubled our focus on climate journalism, citing a blog post by Fenlon in 2021. In an update earlier this year, Fenlon provided an update on the broadcaster's climate initiatives, including a new special project called Overheated, establishing a national climate unit, launching the CBC News' climate dashboard, and creating a dedicated space on its website and news app for climate coverage. Quote, while CBC is ramping up more climate programs, it's just not enough. It's not proportional to the degree of the threat we now confront with climate, Suzuki said. Really? I mean, how many more years can you keep saying that the end of the world is nigh? And how do you do it with a straight face after literally decades of falsely crying wolf? I mean, how many times have these charlatans said there would be no more snow, that LA and New York would be drowned in water as the sea levels rise, that Canada would become a desert, or whatever they said? I mean, people are tuning out, especially now that we have real crises to care about, and the carbon tax makes them all worse. I'm not going to read the whole story. It is so long and so boring. But then again, the Toronto Star has its own conflict of interest. They took money from the US-based lobby group, the Tides Foundation, to pay for extremist, alarmist climate journalism. They took money to promote climate alarmism from a foreign charity, if you want to call that what Tides is. But get a load of this, just for an example. Talk about misinformation. I'm quoting the story again. It cites a 2022 study that found just 55% of more than 4,000 Canadians correctly answered that carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases are the primary cause of climate change. Yeah, but that's actually not true. Water vapor is by far the greatest greenhouse gas. And of course, the sun's activities are the most direct determinant. But you can't really call for a carbon tax on the ocean or on the sun now, can you? I'll read some more. Canadians need to understand the severity of the crisis, but also hear about credible solutions to confront it, to stave off climate fatalism, as well as an interrogation of unproven solutions that could delay climate mitigation, the letter reads. Like I say, their doomsday predictions have failed. Their science is junk. I think they're causing a lot of anxiety in young people, but I think most young people just tune them out, as Coletto's poll shows. But look, even if these sky is falling types were right, what exactly are the credible solutions that they have? There's not a single study or projection ever that suggests that even if we do all the things proposed by Suzuki or the United Nations or whomever, that global warming will be stopped, let alone reversed. Global warming is an extremely slow, steady phenomenon that has been happening almost imperceptibly since we emerged from the last ice age. I mean, you've heard of the ice age, ice ages. You know, we're not really in one now. We're emerging from it. It's natural. It happened far before we could blame cars. It's got nothing to do with us as people. I know vanity suggests it does. There's nothing we can do to stop it. Show me a study to the contrary.